The old diner on 3rd Street had seen better days. Its once bright neon sign buzzed faintly in the cold morning air, flickering in and out like a heartbeat on life support. Inside, a handful of patrons nursed, steaming mugs of coffee while the clatter of utensils and the scent of greasy bacon lingered in the air. In the far corner, a man sat quietly in a booth. His clothes were worn but clean, a duffel bag rested beside him, and his hands, though weathered, held his coffee with surprising steadiness. He was black, in his late 50s, with sharp eyes and a stiff posture that betrayed years of training. He was homeless, at least for now, and his name was Marcus Cole. He had been living in shelters, parks, and occasionally his broken-down truck. But Marcus was not just any man who had fallen on hard times. He was a decorated Marine sniper, a veteran of 2 wars, and a man who had given everything for his country. Most people never looked past the dirt on his boots. The waitress, a kind middle-aged woman named Gina, had served him a hot cup of coffee and a sandwich. She knew Marcus. She had served him before. He never asked for charity. He always paid with what little he had and tipped with whatever dignity remained in his pocket. As he stirred his coffee, 2 police officers entered the diner. They were new in town, young, cocky, and dressed in freshly pressed uniforms that still smelled of starch. Their names were Officer Brent Weller and Officer Kyle Strickland. They scanned the room, eyes resting on Marcus, like a hawk spotting prey. Then, as if drawn by some invisible thread of arrogance and ignorance, they walked toward his table. "Sir," Officer Weller said, his voice louder than necessary. "You cannot loiter here." Marcus looked up slowly. "I am not loitering. I ordered food. I paid." Officer Strickland stepped forward. "Mind showing us some ID?" Gina moved quickly from behind the counter. "He is not bothering anyone. He is a regular here." But the officers were already reaching for Marcus's bag. "Step away from the bag," Officer Weller ordered, his hand hovering over his holster. "Now." Marcus sighed and stood. His back was straight, shoulders squared, not out of defiance, but habit. He raised his hands calmly. "I served in the military for 27 years. You might want to slow down." "Really?" Strickland sneered. "That's supposed to impress us?" "Not at all," Marcus replied evenly. "Just trying to avoid escalating what is already unnecessary. Let us be the judge of that," Weller said. "Empty your pockets." Marcus did as told. Out came a worn leather wallet, a folded photo of his daughter, and a military challenge coin. Strickland grabbed the coin and turned it over. "What is this?" "A coin given to me by the Commandant of the Marine Corps, for valor." Strickland snorted. "Sure it is." They began to pat him down roughly, while the entire diner went silent. Some watched in shame, others in fear. But Marcus remained calm until they dumped his duffel bag onto the floor, spilling out clothes, a Bible, a Bronze Star medal, and a folded American flag. Then something in him snapped. Marcus picked up the flag and folded it slowly, precisely. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from the ache of betrayal. When he finished, he looked up at the officers and said only one thing. "Phone." "What?" Weller asked. "I need to make a call." Weller laughed. "To who? Your lawyer?" Marcus stared him down. "To the only man in this state who outranks you both and owns your pensions with a single sentence." The officers chuckled, but Gina handed Marcus her cell phone without hesitation. She had seen something in his eyes that made her stomach twist. Marcus dialed a number by heart. "General Daniels speaking. Sir, this is Sergeant Marcus Cole." There was silence on the other end, then the sharp intake of breath. "Sergeant Cole, where the hell have you been?" "In town, sir." "Currently being frisked and humiliated by 2 local officers in a diner." General Daniels' voice dropped an octave. "Put one of them on." Marcus handed the phone to Weller. "This is Officer Weller." The diner was so silent, everyone could hear the muffled shouting on the other end. Weller's face paled. He tried to respond, stuttered, then handed the phone back wordlessly. "You will remain where you are," Marcus said calmly. "Help is coming." 15 minutes later, a black SUV pulled up outside the diner. Out stepped General Franklin Daniels, flanked by military escorts. Behind him, a convoy of federal vehicles. He entered the diner without fanfare and walked straight to Marcus, extending a hand. "It has been too long, Sergeant." Marcus stood and saluted. The general turned to the officers. "You two are suspended immediately pending an internal investigation. Your conduct is not just disgraceful, it is dangerous." "But sir, we did not," Weller started. "You disrespected a decorated Marine. You profiled him, harassed him, and searched him without probable cause. That ends here." He turned to Gina. "You will be hearing from the State Veterans Commission. Thank you for standing up for one of ours." And just like that, the officers were escorted out, heads low, careers in shambles. The next morning, Marcus's story went viral. Someone had recorded the whole encounter. The video exploded online. News stations picked it up. Headlines read, "Decorated Marine humiliated in diner, then makes one call that ends it all." The mayor issued an apology. The police department launched a citywide reform initiative. And Marcus was offered a position as a Veterans Affairs advisor to the city council. He declined at first, but General Daniels encouraged him. "People need to see what dignity looks like. You lived it. Teach it." Marcus moved into a small apartment provided by a local veteran housing program. Gina stopped by often with home-cooked meals. They became friends, then something more. The diner placed a photo of Marcus in uniform on the wall above the corner booth, with a plaque that read, "This seat is reserved for SGT Marcus Cole, a true American hero." The officers exchanged mocking glances as James slowly reached for his old, cracked phone. His fingers trembled not from fear, but from the weight of injustice he had carried for far too long. With deliberate calm, he pressed a number under his favorites list and brought the phone to his ear. "General Kingston," James said firmly, his eyes never leaving the officers. The laughter at the counter paused. "Sergeant Command James Carter," he continued, requesting immediate intervention. "I am being detained at a diner on Roosevelt and 5th, apparently for ... existing." There was silence on the line for a second. Then, "Say no more, Sergeant. I'm on it." The two officers scoffed. "General, what kind of game are you playing?" James simply slid his phone across the table. The line was still open. A voice came through, clear, sharp, and authoritative. "This is General Arthur Kingston, Joint Base Commander. You are currently interacting with a decorated war hero who served 4 tours and has a presidential commendation. I suggest you stand down." The color drained from the lead officer's face. "Sir, we did not know. You did not care," the general's voice barked. "Tell me, Officer Grant, what protocol do you follow when harassing citizens without cause?" "You will remain at your location. Military police and federal internal affairs are en route." The officer's hand dropped from his weapon as the entire diner went completely silent. The waitress, who had been recording discreetly from the kitchen, stepped out in disbelief. Within 7 minutes, 2 black SUVs pulled up. Men in crisp suits emerged, followed by uniformed military police. The doors to the diner opened, and General Kingston himself entered. General Kingston walked directly up to James and offered a sharp salute. "Sergeant Carter, you serve this country with unmatched loyalty and valor. I am ashamed it is repaid with ignorance." James stood and returned the salute. "Thank you, sir." The general turned to the officers. "You targeted a man because of his skin color and assumed circumstances. You did not check ID. You did not verify anything. You treated a decorated veteran like a criminal." Officer Grant stammered. He looked like, "Say that again, officer." "Say it, and I will ensure your badge becomes a cautionary tale." As Internal Affairs stepped forward, The two officers were handcuffed, not in the back of a squad car, but in front of every person they had intimidated. The general addressed the room. For the record, James Carter is a Silver Star recipient, was wounded in Afghanistan during Operation Valiant Storm, and served this nation for 22 years. When the world burned, he stood in front of it so you did not have to. News of the incident spread quickly. The waitress's video went viral in hours. Veteran harassed in diner exposes cops with one phone call. Read the headlines. Public outcry followed. Civil rights groups rallied. Veterans groups took a stand. On television, clips played of James' military accolades, his post-service advocacy work, and even photos of him receiving medals at the White House. The contrast between the image the cops painted and who James truly was could not have been starker. Officer Grant and his partner were suspended indefinitely, pending federal investigations. Public apologies were issued, but no one was moved. Because the real pain was not in the incident, it was in how many Jameses had no phone to make that call. A week later, James stood in front of a podium at the Lincoln Memorial. The crowd stretched endlessly, veterans at the front, community leaders behind, news cameras rolled. "I did not want this attention," James said, "but I also know I was lucky. Not every homeless vet gets to dial a general. Most do not get to tell their side of the story." He paused, letting silence do what words could not. This nation owes its veterans more than medals. We deserve dignity, safety, respect. We should not have to wear our uniforms or carry medals to be seen as human. Applause followed, thunderous and long. General Kingston approached him afterward. "James, what do you plan to do next?" James smiled. "I want to build housing for homeless veterans, legal aid for those who are profiled, advocacy for those without voice." Within weeks, a nonprofit was born, Stand Tall Foundation. Donations poured in. Former military leaders pledged support. Corporations lined up to contribute. James, once sleeping behind alleys, was now leading a national conversation. Months later, James returned to the diner not to relive trauma, but to show that healing was possible. The manager had changed. The atmosphere was different. The staff, now trained in inclusion and sensitivity, greeted him with sincere respect. "You changed everything," the new waitress said. "Because of you, we all see differently." James looked around, and for the first time in a long while, he felt like he belonged, not because of medals, not because of the general's call, but because of truth, justice, and courage. Epilogue. One phone call, one legacy. James Carter's story became part of national policy reform. Police departments revised training protocols on dealing with the homeless and veterans. James' law was passed in several states, requiring vet ID checks before any arrest for vagrancy. James was invited to speak at the United Nations about post-service life for veterans. His foundation built 4 housing complexes in 2 years, offering free lodging, therapy, and job training. All of it, every change, every life saved, started with one act of injustice and one man who refused to bow to it. And every time someone asked him about that day in the diner, James would say with quiet strength, "I made one phone call." But what truly ended their careers was not the general, it was the truth.